As the kids are filing out to go to Kids Club, I want you to go to Matthew 14. We're going to get there eventually. Matthew 14 today. But as you can see on the screen behind me, this morning I'm going to give our yearly State of the Church address. And if you've not been here for long, or if you've not been here before, when we've done this, we do this each year at the beginning of the year, the first or second Sunday in the year. And it's just an opportunity for us to slow down, not just race into a new year business as usual. We want to slow down and we want to reflect. We want to consider and just kind of check in, kind of check the pulse of where we're at and how things are going so that we can then turn our attention more fully to the year ahead and where God might be leading us. And so that's what we're going to do this morning. And as always, I'm going to share some, not all of everything I wish I could share. There's so much I wish we could talk about and had time for. But this morning, I'll share some stats and figures, which are important to a degree. But as always, our goal, my goal, pastorally, is not just the numbers themselves, but we want to ask questions about what these numbers mean. Because numbers, as we'll talk about here in just a moment, they can be confusing, or they can even be misleading, if we don't know what we're looking at or what we're looking for or where we're trying to go. And so as always, when we present this information, it's not to impress you. It's not to bore you. It's to get a feel for where we're at so that we can turn our attention to where the Lord is going to lead us. So what's the story behind the numbers? What do these mean? What do they mean for us and how we can continue moving forward? So that's going to be our focus this morning. And again, there's a ton that I wish we had time to get into, but I'm going to keep our attention focused on two main things this morning. First is a snapshot of where we are as a church, kind of a general overview of where we are in this moment. Big picture. And then secondly, we're going to look to the year ahead with a word of challenge from Matthew 14. So here we go is the snapshot of where we are as a church. Let me talk you through these numbers just real quick. By my calculations, and these are rough calculations, I'm not a statistician, our church roll, if you will, this is comprised of members, children of members, those on our watch care ministry, and those who are considered inactive members. Kind of grand total, New Hope is working with roughly 518 people. Now, of those 518, our system, our computer system, indicates that 340 are active members. We'll have a sermon another day on what it means to be an active member, but for the most part, this means people who are here. We don't have exact data on how often they're here, but we know of a given year, at least 340 people are members and they're here attending services. That leads to the next line. On a given Sunday, we look back for the past year, all of 2024. On a given Sunday, we average 315 people. This is across both services together, but also those watching online, 315 people. And that's just on a Sunday morning. So this is not including Sunday evening when we do discipleship classes. This is not including Wednesday night activities or upward or anything like that. That's just Sunday morning attendance, 315 on average. Now, that next line, you see life group roll, seems to be impressive, but don't be too impressed yet. 350. That's more than we technically have active members, but on a given Sunday, we don't have all 350. We have maybe half of that, depending on each individual life group. But we're encouraged that people are making the effort to get connected and be involved in a life group. But this bottom line is something I want to spend just a second on. Last year, we welcomed in 36 new members, 14 of which were baptisms. That's new people who have come to faith in Jesus Christ, were baptized here and are here with us. And so that's absolutely encouraging. That's the number I'm most excited about on this page, that we have people in our midst, in our reach, that God is grabbing a hold of and turning their hearts towards Christ, and we get to be a part of it. So absolutely, that's encouraging, and you should be encouraged by that too. But here's the thing, and you can leave this slide up just for a little bit longer. Again, these are just numbers. These are just basic numbers. They don't necessarily mean much on their own. For one, because like I said earlier, I'm not a professional statistician. And so these are not precisely accurate numbers. These are kind of rough numbers. But as I mentioned earlier, numbers can be confusing. Or numbers can even be misleading if we don't know what we're looking for or what questions to ask of them. But the reason I share them with you this morning is because I think they help situate us as a church. What I mean by that is they help us see where we're at in terms of church size, which then helps us recognize what we're working with and then how we need to operate. We go to the next slide. I want to show you this. So according to these two frameworks, the one on the left is by Tim Keller. This is a reputable source. These are his categories for church size. And the one on the right you see is from Lifeway Research. This came out roughly late 2022. So these are fairly recent. And these are helpful categories. These are not end-all be-alls. This is not scripture. But these are helpful categories. Look at these categories. According to the numbers that I just shared with you about where we are as a church, on the left-hand side, it says we're at least a medium-sized church. And on the categories on the right, it says we are in the biggest category, that of a larger church. Now, there's a lot that we could talk about here in a lot of different directions on how to tease this out and what that means. But the reason I'm showing this to you is because this is really, I don't know if you feel this. Like when I first saw this, I've been working with this for the last couple of years, kind of wrestling with where we are as a church, where we're going. When I came across these categories, it surprised me because we often don't feel like a larger church, like a big church. But according to these categories, we are. And so that lets us know that church size doesn't really operate based on our feelings. Our feelings depend on what? Personal preference or personal experience. If you came to our church from a real tiny little country church or like a church plant or a house church that had like 40 or 60 or 75 on a given Sunday, our church is going to feel huge. 2 services? That's massive. But if you came from a huge church or a church with multiple campuses or a mega church or anything like that, and then you come to our church might feel kind of stiflingly small. So that how you feel about a church is relative to your own personal experience, but it doesn't change the fact that we are what we are. So we have to come to terms with the fact that we are a medium-sized church at least, or even a larger church. And again, I point that out not so we can look at us. We're a big church. We're not trying to compare ourselves to anyone else. I point that out so that we can recognize with this size comes certain realities. With a given size comes certain ways that you have to operate to keep things running smoothly. Let me put it differently. As we continue to grow as a church, there are going to be growing pains, right? And we recognize this in our own lives. We recognize it with ourselves or with our children, but we forget about it when it comes to the life of a church. With growth, with size, come certain realities, certain things you have to deal with, and certain growing pains. So let me put it in these terms. I want you to think about our church, New Hope Baptist Church, right here, right now, in this season of life. We're in the middle years of adolescence. Do you remember adolescence? And some of you have kids in adolescence right now, and so you know what I'm talking about. And let me just kind of give an overview of what adolescence is like. You're not who you used to be. You're not that cute little kid anymore. But you're also not who you're going to be. You're not full grown yet. You're somewhere kind of in between. And you've outgrown some things, right? Certain ways of thinking or behaving, certain clothing. You've outgrown certain toys, certain things you've left in the past. But at the same time, you're not quite ready for full adulthood yet. There are other things that are still coming down the line. And in many ways, you're still the same person. You still have the same heart and the mind. You have the same name. But in a lot of ways, you're a completely different person. You're a person that's in between. And in a lot of times, you just feel kind of awkward in this in between, right? You're just doing the best you can with what you've got and trying to figure things out and how to keep moving forward. And that's okay, right? That's part of life. None of us are upset at our children for being adolescents because we know they're not going to stay there. And we know as things are changing, we're going to change with them. As a child is changing and is growing, they're going to maybe be awkward or things may not quite work smoothly all the time, but they'll figure it out and we'll help them and then they'll keep moving forward, right? You adjust as you go. Well, that's where we are as a church. In a lot of ways, we still feel like we used to when we were a smaller church. Even in my time here, we still feel like we have one service, like we can know everybody, but at the same time, we can't. At the same time, we're not that church anymore. We can't. At the same time, we're having to operate at a bigger size. And I hope you caught that. See, the truth is, again, why I'm sharing this is to tell you where we already are. Like right here, this is a snapshot of who we are today, not projections from the future. It's not that we are growing into and someday will be a bigger church, and therefore will need to learn how to operate as a bigger church. We're already there right now. We have already been having to operate administratively at the very least, but pastorally, I'm having to operate on a grander scale as we continue to grow. And so we can't, you can't, I can't keep acting like we're a small church when we're not. That's not saying good or bad about small church or good or bad about big church. It's saying we've got to come to terms with who we are and where we're at so that we can make the most of it. As we grow, that means change. And as we grow, that means development. And as we grow, that means we need to adjust so that we can grow and be healthy. And there are three main areas that I think this is important for us to point out today, because the fact of the matter is, this isn't something that just myself and the leadership need to deal with. Right? This isn't just about strategy and structure and leadership dynamics. It's part of that. But in the life of a church, I'm not giving you a product. You don't show up on a Sunday or a Wednesday just to take what we're offering and then go back home. Something we really hammer home here is that we're all in this together. That's how God designed it, right? And so we need you and you need us. We need each other. That's how God has designed the body of Christ, the church, to work. It's a two-way street. So there's three areas I'm about to show you where we're going to do work on our end as leadership, but we need you to do the work on your end as the people, as the congregation, so that all of us can work together so that we can move forward well. You can go to the next slide. So the first one is communication. There's a lot of areas that we're working on as we're in this adolescent stage, working things out. But the first one is communication. Let me be very honest with you, and this is coming from a place of love. We are not good at this, and I mean all of us. Let me give you an example. This is not mean, it's just true. A little bit of both. We really, really want you to know what's going on, but I can't make you listen. We do announcements. We do emails that I know a lot of you don't read. You've told me. We're working on it. We're trying to get information to you. Announcements, emails, social media posts, word of mouth. As we continue to grow, we on our end as leadership, we can't assume that people will just know what's going on. We have to tell folks 40 different times, 40 different ways, hoping that one of those lands, and oftentimes it doesn't. So we want you to know we're trying on our end as we grow to get better and better at communicating, putting out communication pathways, overcoming miscommunication. But at the same time, on your end, we need your help. You got to put in the work. You got to pay attention when we do announcements. You got to read those emails that come across or those texts that we send. Or if you don't know, come ask. We want you to know so that you can be connected and involved. And again, as we're growing, it's harder and harder to do this well, but we're making the effort, and we want you to make the effort as well. Secondly, relatedly, connection. Something that I've said a lot over the last couple years and is more and more true as we grow, an emphasis of ours as we're growing. One of the things that we don't want to leave behind of the small church feel is that people know each other. And it's not just about like where you go to church. You've heard me say this before, but it's who you know at church. We want to emphasize people over programs, if I could put a slogan on it, names over numbers. And that's absolutely true. We're not trying to build just a massive empire. We want to be open and faithful to who God gives us and then build on those connections. So when you come here on a given Sunday or a Wednesday or anything that we offer, I'll tell you my mindset. We want to help you connect to God first and foremost, strengthen your relationship with God, but then at the same time, connect you and strengthen your relationship with each other. That's why we emphasize small groups and life groups. That's why we do discipleship classes. That's why we do a lot of what we're doing. That's why we're not in a hurry to grow big and big and big, because we know we can be big and we can be active and miss the point entirely if you don't even know who's sitting next to you. If you don't know what they're going through, if you're not praying for them, if they don't know what you're going through, if they're not praying for you. And so this is, again, an opportunity for us to provide pathways, give you chances to get to know each other and strengthen those relationships. But at the same time, you have to make the effort too. This was a big struggle of ours that we prayed about, and we've been watching ever since we went to 2 services, because no one was mad, but they were worried. Hey, if I go to 2 services, I won't see so-and-so anymore. Or as we're growing, we're happy our church is growing, but there's so many people that I don't know. And on the one hand, absolutely, that makes sense. That is sad, and that is different. But on the other hand, try. Go to a different service. Talk to the person who's next to you. If you see a face you don't know, ask them their name. We can all work on this together. And let me brag on us just for a moment. This is something that really, really blesses my heart and makes me proud as a pastor. I can't tell you how many people have visited our church and then joined our church, and this is the reason why. It's never my preaching. Your sermons were just so good. I knew I had to be here. And the worship's good. The worship, they like the music. The worship's fine. But I've had so many people in my short time here, in my 4 or 5 years here, I've had so many people come to our church, stay at our church, get involved in the life of our church because they said, I came and I felt so welcomed. So I came back and people remembered my name. And I said, I want to be here. And I said, praise God. We're working on that. That's something we're trying to do. So I'm so glad that you felt noticed and you felt connected here, but we got to work on it together. Lastly, one third area is cooperation. Very simply, we just need your help. And in a lot of different ways. Again, this is not a professional business where myself, the pastor, my pastoral staff, we're the professional Christians and we do things and you all just show up. We can't do things without you. Period. We don't want to do things without you because, again, God created us as God's people to work together. And there's 4 areas I want to highlight real quick. You can take a picture of these if you want. Always, children's ministry. We always need volunteers. We need help because we want to make sure it's safe. We want to make sure it's secure. We work very, very hard on that. But also, we want to make sure it's stable. We don't want to have just kind of people in and out, people we're not sure if we can trust. If you're a parent of a young child, which I am, when you show up at a new church, do you know what you check? Is it clean? Is it safe? Is someone actually back there? That's a low bar, isn't it? But we're trying to make sure we pass all those bars so that when families come, especially new families who are looking for a church, we don't want to send them just down some dark, that corner back there, past that dark corner and then turn another corner. You can't see where you're going, but I promise there's someone back there, hopefully. No, we want them to know where they're going when they get in the building. We want it to be clear when they get to where they're going. They want to feel safe, that their kids are going to be taken care of. But they want to know that this is meaningful. And so this is what we do. Rhoda works very, very hard, not just to take care of your children. Again, that's a low bar. That's where we start. But to preach to your children, to teach your children, to plant seeds of the gospel, to raise up our children. So in the nursery and in the older children's ministry, we need your help to do that. And we promise we will support you. Rhoda is fantastic. She sets you up to succeed, but we just need you to help. Secondly, connections team. Again, this is so simple, but so important. These are the smiling faces that greet you at the door. And again, the low bar is, can you stand at a door and smile and say hi to people? Yes, all of you can, because you do it to me in the hallway when I see you. Hey, you smile. Hey, well, do it at the doorway. But then build on that. When people come in, if you don't know them, well, I don't know. As we're growing, there's so many people. What if they're members and I greet them like a visitor? Let me give you pastoral permission. I don't care. Do it anyway. Because you notice them. I, as pastor, will come up to someone and be like, I know that I know you, but I can't remember your name. Will you tell me again? And to my knowledge, no one has been gravely offended by that because hopefully they can tell I'm making the effort. I want to know their name so that I can use their name. You don't have to know everyone to be on the connections team, but you can help us have an attitude and a culture and an environment where people feel welcomed. I visited church. Many of you have visited churches that were so big, it felt like you were just kind of like at a shopping mall where there are people and they're all happy and some of them know each other, but no one really knows everyone. And so you just kind of pass each other and you go about your church business and you go back home. That's not what we want to do here. We want people to be noticed here, to be named here, to be welcomed in here. And a connections team is a first easy way to do that, to greet them and to make sure they know where they're going, even to help them find a seat on a Sunday morning. Life groups, next. Again, always pushing this. As we're growing, we've already maxed out. Let me just tell you that. We've maxed out our space. We've already had to get creative in the last year alone. As you know, we started having groups outside of our Sunday morning time. We're very, very open to that. We stuck a group up in the attic. We just kind of moved space around and we're making it work. And that class is doing well. But we need more groups because we want to reach more people. And so be praying about how you might connect with us with that. And then lastly, financial. If you were at our end of year business meeting in December, we passed our budget for 2025 and it's big and it's hopeful. And it's also scary. It's bigger and more hopeful and more scary than we were maybe comfortable with, but we passed it and we need your help to support it. All of us have to go in this together. We don't just do these numbers and move on and make sure the finance team makes it work. We, as God's people, we come together and we contribute and we support the life and ministry of our church. And a budget is a really simple way that we can do that, but a very important one. Similarly, and you'll hear more about this next month, we'll talk more about, we're developing plans, and we've already taken steps to start actively paying down our FLC debt. That's this big building over here. And we're doing that, not just so we can have that debt off of us, which is part of it, but to free us up so we can be flexible as the Lord continues to lead us forward. We don't want that to be on our backs all the time. But again, we can't do that by ourselves. We need you to cooperate with us. Bottom line with all these things, kind of big picture, as we're growing, we can't assume that someone else is taking care of it, right? Do we understand that? I can't assume that y'all will just pick it up. You can't assume that I will just do it or our staff. It has to be all of us working together so that we can live life well as God's people in this church. Now, let me pause here. Let me provide a little bit of pastoral framing to all this information, because this feels just kind of like an information dump this morning. Again, growth means change, and we know change is often hard, even if it's good. So we recognize as we're growing, we're having growing pains. As we're growing, we're going to face obstacles, and we already have. We've already maxed out space-wise. We got questions about parking and all these other, we got all sorts of things in our way that are facing us as we're continuing to grow into the future. But I want to tell you up front what my and the staff and our leadership, what our frame of mind and heart is. And if you're taking notes, I do want you to write this down. Obstacles can be opportunities. Obstacles can be opportunities. They're not just things that are in our way that we have to deal with. They're not just problems that we have to find a way to fix or to solve or eventually to overcome. Obstacles for God's people, obstacles can be opportunities. Opportunities for us to learn, to be creative, to try new things. Obstacles for us to, opportunities for us to lean on each other, to count on each other, to get new people involved and connected and using their gifts. Opportunities to shape our character, to strengthen our prayer life. But most importantly, ultimately, obstacles for God's people are opportunities to test and to develop our trust in God. And that's what leads us finally to Matthew 14. So look at Matthew 14 with me, verses 22 through 33. You can follow along as I read out loud for us. It says, immediately this is Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, while he stayed behind and dismissed the crowds. Verse 23, and after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. And then when evening came, he was there alone. But the boat by this time was a long way from land, beaten by the waves, for the wind was against them. And in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus came to them walking on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified. They said, it's a ghost, and they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid. And then Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it's you, command me to come out to you on the water. And Jesus said, come. So Peter got out of the boat, and he walked on the water and came to Jesus. But then when Peter saw the wind, he was afraid. And beginning to sink, he cried out, Lord, save me. And Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying to him, O you of little faith, why did you doubt? And then when they got back into the boat, the wind ceased. And those in the boat worshipped him, saying, truly, you are the Son of God. Now, before we get into what happened here in this scene, let me just fill you in on some background to how we got to this scene, what happened just before. This is in Matthew 14, 1 through 21. Just before this, a day before this, if you will, John the Baptist had been beheaded. This is Jesus' cousin, good friend, a supporter of Jesus' ministry. He had been beheaded by King Herod. Many of you know that story. If not, Matthew 14, go read it. And Jesus is bothered by this, understandably. He's hurt, and he wants to grieve. And Matthew 14 tells us that Jesus tried to take some time to be by himself, to mourn and to grieve and commune with the Father in prayer. And so he removes himself from ministry. He tries to find a quiet place where he can pray and he can mourn and lament the loss of John the Baptist, but he's too famous. People recognize him where he is, and a crowd gathers. More and more people. Jesus is here, and so crowds gather. Thousands of people. Jesus is just trying to get away to pray so he can be sad, and thousands of people come to him, and Matthew says that he had compassion on them. He's not too busy for them, and so he ministers to them, and he heals them. And then he does this all day long. All day long, Jesus is healing and working with a crowd. And then evening comes and the disciples have showed up and they're like, hey, it's the end of the day and these people don't have any food. What should we do? You know the story. What does Jesus do? He said, well, let's feed them. 5 loaves, 2 fish. He says 5,000 and more can be blessed, right? So this is happening just before our scene. Jesus mourning the loss of someone close to him. Jesus exhausted from even more and more ministry, but doing the miraculous. He finally gets through all that and says, no, I need some time alone. So hey, disciples, you get in the boat, you go across the sea. I'll meet you there tomorrow. I'll send the crowds home and I'm going to spend some time in prayer. And he does that. He dismisses the crowds. He sends the disciples out across the sea. But what happens? Jesus spends his time praying. And it says in the middle of the night, he's done. The fourth watch, my translation says, your translation might give you a little detail that this is between 3 and 6 a.m. So early morning riser, the sun's not even up yet. Jesus is done praying on the mountainside, and he decides, I'm going to go cross the sea now. And does he hail a cab? Does he find a boat? What does he do? He starts walking across. I'm emphasizing this so that we don't miss this. That's not normal, is it? We've heard this story so many times that we gloss over these details that should be like jarring. He did what? Like, yeah, we get that the disciples needed a boat and Jesus, he rides in boats. He rides on donkeys. What? He says, no, I'm just going to walk across like it's no big deal. And so he's walking across and Mark's version of this event, Mark chapter 6, tells us that Jesus' original plan was just to walk past them. He was going to beat them to the other side. But the disciples are struggling in the midst of this, right? So Jesus is on the mountain praying. He starts walking across the water, and the disciples have been at it all night long. And it's just not going well. They've made some good progress. They're like halfway across the sea, but the wind is raging and the waves are just whipping and they're just struggling. They haven't been sleeping because it hasn't been going smoothly. And they look up off to the side and what do they see? What? That's a person? And this person is just like strolling across the water. Like we're struggling in a boat with the waves and the wind. And there's this human-like figure just going for a walk like it's nothing. So understandably, they're scared, right? They don't know it's Jesus because why would they? We left him on a mountain praying and now we see a ghost, an apparition. Is this some sort of like water spirit? They're panicking. So what does Jesus do? He says, okay, I'm going to stop. I was just going to keep going, but I'm going to stop. And he says, hey, it's me. It's okay. It's me. Do not be afraid. And this is where it starts to get really, really good. Look again at verse 28. What does Peter do? Peter does what Peter always does. He is excited and he is ready to go. And he says, yes, okay. And he believes it's the Lord. Don't got to convince me. But if it is you, or a better, stronger translation is, because it's you, I see that it's you. I believe that it's you. Tell me to come out to you and I will. And Jesus says, okay, come out. And what happens? Peter hops out of the boat. He jumps onto the water, doesn't sink. And he starts walking across the water, the wind and the waves, walking to Jesus, right? And it's going really, really well. He's making his way till Jesus, until what? Until he takes his eyes off Jesus. It says, Peter, listen, on my end, understandably, it says Peter gets distracted by the wind and the waves that have not calmed down. That have not calmed down. He's walking on water, which he has never done before, which no one has done before. He's walking on water. He's making his way to Jesus, but the wind and the waves on this peripheral catch his attention and he starts noticing more and more, being distracted more and more, then discouraged more and more, and then weighed down more and more by the reality of his situation, and he starts to sink. And he cries out for Jesus to save him. And Jesus does, and Jesus picks him up and takes him back to the boat, and they get in the boat, and as soon as they get in the boat, what happens? The raging sea goes quiet. And fortunately, in this case, the people on the boat, they get it. They put 2 and 2 together and like, this Jesus, he can do things that no one else can do. He is special. This is the Son of God. But there's something I want us to consider in particular this morning. Think again about Peter. Peter started really well, didn't he? But Peter shows us that there's a difference between starting well and finishing well, isn't there? Peter started well. He had good intentions. He had good faith. He had strong faith to get him out of the boat, into the raging seas, and to take those steps towards Jesus on the water. But what happened? Even good intentions, Even good faith can only get us so far. We have to keep our eyes on Jesus, moment by moment by moment, step by step by step. Because as soon as Peter took his eyes off Jesus, again, as soon as he got distracted and then worried about and then discouraged by everything going on all around him, he began to sink until Jesus saved him. But here's the thing. This is what we can't miss. The point here in this passage isn't the storm. The point here isn't the miracle of walking on water or the faith involved. The point's not even safely returning to the boat in the storm calming down. What's the point of this passage? Who's the point of this passage? It's Jesus. Do we see that? Now, faith is important. Absolutely. Faith is involved. But what did Peter need most? What was more foundational for Peter? It's not his faith itself that mattered, but what? But who he had faith in. Who's the point of this story? It's Jesus. Because here's the truth. Peter didn't end up safe and sound just because he got back in the boat. Who saved Peter? Jesus. Not the boat, not his faith, but Jesus. That's the point. That's what matters, because that's where life is. Let me put it this way, and I want you to write this down. It is better to be in the waves with Jesus than in a boat without him. Do we see that? Look, there's nothing wrong with boats in life, and hopefully you catch my metaphor. Boats are good. Boats make sense to us. Boats, we like boats, but we need to realize that the boats we have in our lives aren't what we really need. And as good as they may be, they can often become idols. So, for example, we can idolize the plans that we make. We can idolize our hard work and our effort. We can idolize our hopes and our dreams, our desires. We can even idolize our needs as an individual or as a family or as a church. But we need to know that none of those things provide the lasting security and stability that we hope that they will. None of those things can save us. None of those things can give us life. Only Jesus can. This brings me to my closing, and this is the big picture hope for today and for the year ahead. Go to this next slide. This is a theme for our year ahead. Out of the boat, increase our faith. This is my prayer for me and my family. This is my prayer for our church, for the year ahead, for our staff, for all of us. And I want you to join me in praying this bold and terrifying and yet desperately needed prayer. Lord, help us get out of the boat. Lord, do what it takes to bring us to you, to teach us to trust us, to train us to keep our eyes on you. God, show us how much we need you and keep us there in that place. Lord, come what may, we want you. Lord, come what may, we need you. Lord, come what may, we love you. So for me personally, in my life, Lord, get me out of the boat and increase my faith. Lord, for me and my family, get us out of the boat and increase our faith. Lord, for our church, get us out of the boat that we love so much, that we feel so good about, that we work so hard to build up. Get us out of the boat, not because it doesn't matter, but because you are better. And you are what we need, and you have life in your hands. Lord, get us out of the boat and increase our faith. So what do you say? For yourself this year, for your family, for our church. Do you want to join me? Let's get out of the boat and see where the Lord leads us.